Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, we do videos on creepy and disturbing things here. And today is our next installment of probably my favorite series on the channel, Can't Look Away, where I am going to tell you actually 5 different stories in this video of disturbing things that have happened, but you've probably never heard of them. We're going to get right into our first story, which is going to be about Jorge Torres, the man who died zipped into a suitcase by his girlfriend. Today's video is supported by a sponsor. As you guys know, I could not make this channel without my sponsors. And this particular sponsor, I actually begged them to sponsor me. So please watch that if you want to see me be all cozy. And once we come back, I will get right into the stories. So today's sponsor is very, very special to me because I actually reached out to them. And by reached out to them, I actually mean emailed them several times asking them if they would be willing to sponsor me again, because ever since I started playing Love and Pies a couple months ago, I can't stop. I've been playing it every day and it is my new favorite game. So Love and Pies was kind enough to sponsor me again. And so here we are. Love and Pies is a mobile game. It's free to download and it is the coziest, most wholesome, cute game of all time. So let me show you. So as you can see, I'm on level 39. Here is my board. Here is all of my cute things that I've built out. So this is my cafe. There is special Halloween decorations right now for Halloween. As you play, there's also a storyline. Here's my game board, and I am ridiculously proud of my game board. I feel like I have got this strategy down really well. They have lots of events going on all the time, but my favorite event is Customer Clash, and I've won the last 5 times. You have to play Customer Clash. It's so ridiculously fun. So on your board, you're spawning items from your little machines, and then you merge the items together to create bigger, cooler, prettier items. And then you serve those to the customers, which you have up here, and they will give you not only coins, but other prizes for making items for them. It is really fun to snuggle up with this game during these cold, dark months. So you guys, please download this game. Please give it a try. Like I said, it's totally free to download. And I just want you to understand and feel the joy that I get from playing this game. I want you to understand. I need you to feel that joy that I feel when I play this game and how fun and wholesome and just beautiful it is. I also just think it would be super fun if we had a Hannah the Horrible Love and Pie players. There was a group of us in my audience that played this game and could all relate to each other and play it together. And then you can see if you can catch up to me in the game. So yeah, okay, go download the game. I will put the link on the screen for you, and I will see you guys in Love and Pies land. So this first story about Jorge Torres was actually an email suggestion that I got from a subscriber. I don't have the name of the subscriber, but still, thank you for the email. This one takes place on February 25th, 2020 in Winter Park, Florida. 911 dispatch received an incredibly strange emergency call. It was from 42-year-old Sarah Boone, calling to tell the police that her boyfriend was dead in their home. She explained to dispatch that she and her boyfriend, Jorge Torres, had a bottle of wine together, and then they decided to play hide and seek. She said during their game of hide and seek, they decided to see if Jorge could fit into a suitcase and if Sarah could zip him into it completely. They tried, and according to Sarah, they were both laughing in delight about how he did fit into the suitcase, and it worked. Yes, I know this makes absolutely no sense, and there is likely some other part to this story because, first of all, who plays hide and seek with 2 people as grown adults, unless it's some sort of essual thing? And second of all, you're not really playing hide and seek if you help the person get into their hiding spot when you're the one who's supposed to find them. So yes, you're not losing it. This is very strange. Sarah then claims that she forgot Jorge was in the suitcase, she went to the other room and accidentally fell asleep. Jorge, who was stuck in the suitcase and couldn't get out, was stuck in there for hours, possibly up to 9. And of course, he suffocated. So at first, there was no evidence that this was anything other than a drunken accident. So at first, police did not arrest Sarah.
The problem is I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
When did you do CPR?
This morning, when I found him.
Before you called?
Yes!
It's 1 o'clock right now.
I tried. I was awake, but I actually got out of the bed at like 12:30ish, whatever. So I came downstairs, and I was like, oh, he's in the suitcase still. And that's when I found him, and I took him out, and I tried doing CPR, and then I called him, and then I called you guys.
Did he get here before the fire department got here?
Who?
Your husband or
Yes.
your ex-husband?
Yes.
Okay. Where does he live at?
Right down the street.
Okay. So you were playing, and who zipped him up in?
I did, but then I fell asleep.
Okay. You're okay. I wasn't here. I'm just trying to figure out what happened.
I fell asleep, so I don't know if he suffocated or like had an aneurysm or a heart attack or what.
What kind of medical conditions does he have?
None that I know of.
Nothing that you know of.
None
you didn't
that I
take
know
any
of.
medicine?
No.
No medicine.
All we had was a bottle of wine. Literally, just a bottle of wine.
Okay.
Doing puzzle artwork. Then we decided to play hide and seek.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that happened.
Okay.
So I don't know if he had a heart attack or what in there. Like, I don't know what happened.
However, the police did think her story was strange, so they asked her the next day if she would be willing to just come down to the station and answer a few questions for them. Sarah agreed. She came down to the station, is answering questions, and police asked if their forensics department could search her phone. Again, Sarah agreed. At this point, it really would have behooved Sarah to just not say anything and hire a lawyer before she gave up any sort of stories or information, but Sarah's really not that smart, which was proven even further because there was 2 very incriminating videos on her phone that police found very quickly. Sarah claims she doesn't remember taking the videos, which honestly I do believe because A, it was very clear she was drunk in the videos, but also why would she have handed those over if she had remembered that they were on there, because they are very incriminating. The videos on her phone were subsequently released. Now, I cannot show you the full clip in this video because of YouTube guidelines. However, I will show you some stills from the video as well as a little bit of the audio. If you're curious, it's very, very easy to find. It is on YouTube elsewhere. It's just that I have to be a little more careful since this channel is my livelihood. But I will warn you, the full clip is incredibly disturbing. So in the video, Sarah's laughing at Jorge. Jorge's saying her name over and over again from inside the suitcase, literally telling her several times that he cannot breathe. Sarah responds at one point, "That's what it feels like when you choke on me." It's hard to tell exactly what she's saying though, because her speech is very slurred. At another point, she says, "That's what it feels like when you cheat on me." At least that's what it sounds like. She's laughing throughout the video. She's then just like verbally degrading Jorge. She's calling him stupid, saying F you. And after saying her name, she even says, "That's my name, don't wear it out," like mocking him. Her words, like I said, are very slurred. It is obvious that she's drunk and probably doesn't remember actually taking a video of this. Sarah would swear up and down to investigators that she did not mean to leave him in there, that it was a total accident. She was drunk, she fell asleep, and she forgot that he was in there. And when she came back in the room the next morning and remembered, she was absolutely horrified. She claims that she left a gap in the zipper specifically so that Jorge could get 2 fingers through to let himself out. But of course that was not true, or Jorge would be with us today. But then, of course, she started claiming to investigators that it was actually Jorge who was a very abusive spouse and would come at her all the time. Jorge's not here to defend himself, obviously, but by the way she was acting in these videos, I have a hard time believing that. Based on the videos from her phone, it seems very much like she had every intention of leaving him in there. And the fact that she's mocking him and laughing at him makes me believe that she was very much enjoying this power and control that she had over him. And if that wasn't proof enough, apparently in the autopsy of Jorge, they found other scratches and injuries on his body that were likely not from being in the suitcase. Now, this case was so recent that it's actually still ongoing. And if you had any doubts in your mind that Sarah's just a shitty person, this part might convince you. She's been through 6 attorneys. The 6th attorney that just left her, that quit on her, said the reason that they quit was because Sarah wanted an attorney that could focus solely on her case and no other cases. Basically, they wouldn't say this because they're professionals, but she's very difficult to work with and very demanding. Now, because of this, her trial keeps getting delayed. And it makes me kind of wonder if she's pissing off the attorneys on purpose to keep delaying the trial. Her next court appearance is supposed to be in December of this year, like in 6 weeks. And most attorneys believe that she's going to try to use the battered spouse defense, basically that this was self-defense and she was pushed over the edge by Jorge's abuse, and that's why this was justified. If that is the defense she chooses, my personal opinion is that, of course, it's BS. I mean, on the one hand, if you think about it, it is unlikely that Sarah allegedly forced him into the suitcase. I mean, how would she have forced a grown man into a suitcase, like, beyond his will? It is likely that originally he got in on his own free will, thinking that it was a funny joke. However, I personally believe, and this is speculation, this is alleged, I have no solid proof of this, but it is my personal opinion that once he was in there, Sarah just simply didn't care whether he lived or died. It's very clear by the video. If somebody's saying that they can't breathe and you're laughing at them, then you have absolutely no regard for their life. At some point during that evening, she made the conscious decision that, yeah, he might die in there and I don't care. So assuming that the charges against Sarah are in fact true, we'll let the court decide. I do hope that she goes to prison for a long time because she clearly was the abuser in this situation and did not care about Jorge's life. Kat McLean's story is also a suggestion that I got from a subscriber. Thank you so much to Katie, who sent me the email about this story because it's wild. So Kat McLean is an artist from Salem, Massachusetts, and the owner of the small business Kat's Creepy Creations. She advertised her small business as a place to buy pieces that quote unquote shock the mind and shake the soul. She creates all things macabre, horror oddities, usually out of other things. One of the main things she creates is dolls. She takes existing dolls and makes them into creepier versions of those dolls, which is a great idea. And she does seem to do a great job. Here's some photos of her artwork, and she does seem like a very talented artist. Well, on February 9th, 2020, Kat posted this photo on her Instagram. The post read, "Throwback to the set of Hubie Halloween. This doll has been sold, and yes, that is a real human skull. If you're in the market for human bones, hit me up." Bunch of hashtags. Now, we've talked about this before on the channel, mostly about the controversial TikToker John's Bones, who claims to sell quote unquote ethically sourced human bones. My personal opinion is that there's no way to ethically source human bones when the purpose is to profit from them. My issue with it is that often these bones end up sourced from impoverished parts of the world, and so this hobby is inherently contributing to classism and often racism. So that's first. Second, I have a hard time believing that any family member would be okay with their loved one's remains being sold literally as a prop and for profit. It feels so objectifying, disrespectful, and exploitative. Now, the reason we're talking about this is because Kat was not lying. That was a real human skull in that picture she posted to Instagram, and apparently she had been doing this for a while. But it gets way worse. After authorities figured out what she was doing, she was arrested for distributing and selling stolen goods for a profit. Turns out Kat was one of 7 people participating in a black market exchange of selling human remains. The man behind all of this is Cedric Lodge, a now former morgue manager for Harvard Medical School, as he was, of course, fired. With help from his wife, Denise, he was allegedly stealing parts of the cadavers from the morgue at Harvard and selling the pieces to Kat McLean and others for a profit. People that donated their bodies to the school after they passed for education and science purposes, and the morgue manager was looting the morgue and selling pieces of their remains for thousands of dollars. Kat allegedly gave Cedric $600 for 2 dissected human faces in October 2020, and she also allegedly bought human skin from him, sent it to another person in this underground crime ring named Jeremy Pauly, so he could make the skin into leather for her. This happened in the summer of 2021. She then got more skin from Cedric to pay Jeremy with the skin instead of paying him money. This is straight out of the indictment document. In or about June and July 2021, Katrina McLean in Massachusetts shipped human skin to Jeremy Pauly in Pennsylvania and engaged his services to tan the skin to create leather. On or about July 31st, 2021, Pauly set a photograph of the leather, and McLean agreed to provide Pauly with human skin in lieu of monetary payment. Katrina McLean then contacted Cedric Lodge and inquired about obtaining human skin to send to, quote unquote, the dude I sent the chest piece to tan. Cedric Lodge agreed to look for skin at Harvard Medical School for McLean to send to Pauly. Cedric would even allegedly allow Kat and others into the morgue themselves to shop for what they wanted from the cadavers. Among the remains that Cedric sold, according to the indictment document, he sold brains, skin, bones, and heads. So this is despicable for reasons that we already discussed. Like, I just cannot believe the disrespect and the objectification and exploitation of like people's loved ones. It's not the dead person. Like, the dead person doesn't know. Like, I understand that. Like, I do think we should respect human remains in general, but it's the loved ones that loved that person and cared for them when they were alive, to learn that then their accessories were being used as jewelry and props and hobbyists is just really gross. But selfishly, it pisses me off for a whole other reason, because people like me, and I'm sure many of you, who love oddities, who love collecting weird stuff and just have a morbid curiosity and enjoy learning about weird stuff, it gives us a really bad name because it makes it seem like this is all we care about and that we would love human remains and stuff like that. I would never collect any sort of human remains and display it in my house like a trophy. I'd find that so incredibly weird, and all I would be able to think about every time I looked at it is the person that I stole somebody's body parts. Like, please just don't think that like goth people are like this or people that like morbid things are like this, because we're definitely not. A lot of us think this kind of thing is really effed up. Anyway, Kat is facing up to 10 years in prison if she's convicted. She is currently out on bail, since even I get it, she was not a violent offender, so she's not a risk to the public. Her and several others are awaiting trial as they pled not guilty. Cedric Lodge and Jeremy Pauly, though, who we talked about, ended up changing their plea to guilty just last month, foregoing their trial, but I don't believe they've been sentenced yet. Before we move on to the next story, I just want to read you this other section from the indictment because it's just bananas. Between on or about September 3rd, 2018 through July 12th, 2021, Joshua Taylor transferred 39 electronic payments to this PayPal account operated by Denise Lodge, totaling $37,355.56 in payment for human remains stolen by Cedric Lodge from Harvard Medical School. For example, on May 19th, 2019, Taylor sent Denise Lodge $1,000 with a memo that read, "Head number 7. On November 20th, 2020, Taylor sent Denise Lodge $200 with a memo that read, brains." I know that part of the indictment didn't involve Kat, but it was just such a wild part of what these people were doing and acting like there was nothing wrong with it. I just had to add that part. Our next story takes us to the Public University of El Alto in Bolivia on March 2nd, 2021 at 8 a.m. A large group of students are trying to get into a room in the Financial Sciences building for a meeting to organize a protest against the Economic, Financial, and Administrative Science branch of the school. And as you could see in the photos, the hallway was just jam-packed with students. Little did they know the structure of the banister was not sound, and soon a total nightmare was about to play out. This balcony that you see in the photo is weak, and within minutes it was going to break under the pressure of the crowd, and they were on the 4th floor. It did collapse, and it sent several students falling down from the 4th floor onto the concrete down below. Again, I can't show you the whole video on YouTube. I will most definitely get age restricted, just showing a couple stills that are not as graphic. Here, the video is as horrifying as you can imagine. And again, watch it at totally your own risk, because a lot of people said that they really can't unsee this. And unfortunately, there's also just so much missing information about this story, and all the sources are unreliable because they say different things. Most of the sources state that 7 students died and several others were, of course, injured. The Wikipedia page says that 8 students died, though. There is a rumor that one of the girls who was saved last minute, as her colleagues pulled her back up after she almost fell, that she had a heart attack and died almost immediately after the incident, even though she didn't fall to her death. I cannot stress enough that that is a rumor that I've seen like on Reddit and stuff. I cannot corroborate that with actual news or evidence. I have no idea. And then other sources say that the students were gathering for a protest, some sort of injustice going on at the school, but others saying that it was simply a meeting and that scuffles started breaking out as students, like things became heated and some of the students were fighting, and that's possibly what contributed to the collapse. It was very hard to find like a lot of reliable information, and there was no updates on it either. This case was not widely reported on. There's only a few articles about it, and there was nothing more recent with updates on it. So it's possible we'll never know. We know at least 7 students fell though, and fell down and died when they fell on the concrete down below, and a handful of others were injured. Just what a terrible way to lose your loved one. Tatike Kutsi was a 61-year-old man from South Africa, a father of 6 who went to the hospital to undergo abdominal surgery. He was then transferred to a recovery ward in the Stellenbosch Hospital on October 5th, 2017. The surgery went well, and Tatike seemed to be recovering as expected. He had a nurse who was frequently checking on him and helping him with his recovery. Well, the nurse at one point stepped out of Tatike's room to go get him fresh linens. It is believed that she couldn't have been gone for more than a couple minutes. But when she came back to Tatike's room, he was gone. He had vanished from the bed within a couple minutes. Hospital staff, of course, began looking for Tatike in the hospital, but they were trying to do it quietly. They were trying to keep this all on the DL. I'm sure they didn't want to panic the other patients, and they also did not want a media frenzy because, of course, a patient just disappearing from their bed under the supervision of hospital staff is not a good look. But for the next 2 days, they didn't tell anybody. They didn't report him missing. They didn't call the family. They were just looking for him within the hospital themselves. Tatike was nowhere to be found, though. Finally, the hospital called Tatike's family asking if he was with them at home. They were like, No, he was supposed to be there with you at the hospital recovering. So the hospital tells the family, well, he left the hospital. We don't have him. We don't know where he is. TK's brother said, well, that's not possible because supposedly this abdominal surgery that you gave him would leave him unable to walk for a while. There's no way that he just walked out of the hospital on his own free will without anyone noticing. The whole family, of course, rushed to the hospital right away to start looking for TK, but they could not find him either. The next day, they brought the police with them. So not only could they not find TK, but there was no sign of him either. There was no sign in his room or anywhere in the hospital of where he could have gone. Finally, on October 20th, weeks after he initially disappeared, contractors at the hospital that were working on renovations made a grisly discovery and found TK's dead body in the ceiling of the hospital. He was found, quote unquote, in an isolated area in the ceiling of the facility. An autopsy performed onto TK shows that he did not die from complications of the surgery, and it was implied by the hospital staff to TK's family that TK didn't die from natural causes, implying that somebody killed him, as well as the fact that he was likely placed in the ceiling post-mortem. So many people believe that this is a legit case of teleportation, that there's simply no other explanation for how TK could have ended up in the ceiling. Of course, I don't really believe that myself, but I do understand how some believers might have gotten to that conclusion. It's almost inconceivable, but I suppose technically possible, that he just got up, walked away, was in some delirious state, and climbed up in the ceiling while recovering from abdominal surgery. The only real-world reasonable explanation is that he was murdered and moved up there. That just opens up a ton more questions. Who murdered him? I mean, the obvious suspect would be the nurse that was caring for him. It's always wise to check out the last person who saw the victim. Did she kill TK and then cover it up by reporting him as a missing person to the hospital? But again, that seems inconceivable, how a nurse would carry a grown man recovering from surgery and drag him into the ceiling. And if she killed TK, then it's likely she was probably killing other people. Why would she only just randomly kill a patient for no reason if she didn't have some sort of taste for blood? And if she was a weird nurse like that and she was doing this kind of stuff in the hospital, somebody would have noticed or put a red flag on her to have her checked out. I just don't think that it was the nurse. Did another patient kill him? Was a hitman hired and snuck into the hospital, killed TK without making any noise, dragged him away without anyone seeing, and then stashed him in the ceiling away from his room without any staff noticing? I also highly doubt that. My personal theory, I think it's very suspicious that the hospital was acting so weird after TK disappeared. And I think it's weird that they never reported it to the police. The family had to do that. Now, I have to be very clear here. This is complete speculation. For legal purposes, I am not accusing this hospital of anything. This is simply a theory based on what I know of the case. I could be completely wrong. But in my opinion, what about the theory that something went wrong during TK's recovery? Did he get an infection? Was there some sort of malpractice that went on that caused TK to die right after the surgery? And was it something that was going to make the hospital look very, very bad if people found out? So he passes away, and what if some of the staff from the hospital hid his body together? It would take multiple people to get him up in the ceiling. He was also put up there post-mortem, and then they had to come up with the nurse story, so they didn't tell the family for a couple days while they were all getting their story straight. It would explain the weird autopsy report and how vague they were being about the way that he died. It would explain why the hospital didn't call the police or report him missing or tell the family right away. And it would explain why nobody seemed to see anything, because anyone who did see something was in on it and was working with the story. So they all worked together to make sure that no random patients saw what was going on. Again, I cannot stress enough that that is speculation. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I have absolutely no solid proof to back that up. It is simply a theory. Either way, this story is wild, and it's another one that I don't think is going to get enough investigation. I think it's going to be swept under the rug, and more investigation isn't going to go into it, and we're not going to get answers, which is frustrating for us. Just imagine how Tatike's family feels. On August 15th, 2013, it was Martin Manley's 60th birthday, the big 6-0, and boy, did he have big plans for the day. Around 5 a.m. that morning, Martin went to a police station parking lot in Kansas City, Kansas, and went to stand under a tree. He then pulled out his cell phone and called 911. I want to report a suicide at the south end of the parking lot of the Overland Park Police Station at 123rd and Metcalf, he said to dispatch. Then he hung up, pulled out his .380 pistol, and that was it. Martin Manley was a former sports writer for the Kansas City Star. He left the following note for officers. I committed suicide of my own free will. I am not under the influence of any drugs. I am sorry for your inconvenience. You will be contacted within a matter of hours by my sister. She will find out about this by an overnight letter and or email I sent to her, which she will get this morning. In it, I explain the exact location of where I shot myself and gave her your phone number. At that time, she will tell you who I am. If you discover who I am prior to her call, please do not contact her. I do not want her or anyone else I sent letters to overnight to find out about it from you. I want them to find out about it from me. Thank you. In the note, he also left instructions for hopefully getting his organs donated. He asked them to destroy the weapon, ammunition, and the phone as they serve no purpose anymore, and the info for where he prepaid for his own cremation. While, of course, this seemed very planned, you don't know the half of it. Turns out they found an entire website that Martin Manley had been working on for months and months, all dedicated to blogging about not only his life, but his death. Turns out, according to Martin, this was 14 months in the making. This website is extensive, but it specifies that he was healthy. He had no legal troubles, no financial troubles. In fact, he had a gold and silver stash worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, plus a hefty 401k. He did not feel lonely or underappreciated. He had a full life of activities and people to spend his time with. He said he didn't suffer some loss of someone in his life that was too much to bear. And most of all, he says he was not depressed. He said that his life was virtually stress-free and that he loved his job and his hobbies. So, why did Martin do it? Throughout his blog, Martin stresses over and over again that it is simply because death is inevitable. He didn't want to wait until he was so old that he couldn't do anything about it. The thought of being in a nursing home or becoming not like himself or a vegetative state horrified him. He wanted to go out on his own terms, and he chose an age where he would be young enough that he could still carry it out with all of his mental faculties, but old enough that he wasn't too young, if that makes sense. He also wanted to be young enough that he would be able to write this blog. He also says in the blog that he always thought that his life would end this way, and that he had always thought about doing this for many, many years. It had always kind of been in the back of his mind. Martin didn't seem to think that S-word was a good thing. He wasn't encouraging others to do it. In fact, he put warnings at the top of some of his posts that said that, hey, this particular post may not be the best one for you to read if you're not in a good state of mind. He put resources at the bottom of the homepage. He also did it specifically at 5 a.m. so that no innocent bystanders would likely be there to witness it and be traumatized. He did it specifically at the police station and called 911 so that he would be found very, very quickly. Again, mitigating the risk that a random bystander would accidentally see the scene. And he also knew that police officers were going to be people who have seen really grisly stuff before, so it wouldn't traumatize them as much, at least in his mind. He definitely didn't want to do it at home because he knew that would leave a mess that his sister would have to see. He didn't want his sister or any loved ones to see either him or any type of mess that that occurs from this. I have no better way of wording that. However, something interesting that I found going through Martin's blogs is that he does seem to focus quite a bit on how miserable the world is. It gets kind of bleak. In several of his posts, he discussed specifically how two events really affected him: 9/11 and the Newton, Connecticut shooting at an elementary school. In spite of the way he died and being a longtime gun owner, Martin stresses in one of the posts that he believes reform for the more deadly weapons is necessary. On one post, he writes, "I can't imagine going through another 9/11 attack. Since I expect things to happen that will dwarf the misery of that day, I'm glad I won't be around to see them." In another post, he writes, "If I wasn't already sick of seeing suffering, the past few months before I died was more than enough. Too much. First, Hurricane Sandy obliterated the Northeast. Then a crazy gunman killed 26 at an elementary school in Newton, Connecticut. Shortly after that, a terrorist attacked innocent people at the Boston Marathon. Then there was an explosion at a fertilizer plant in Texas. And then a devastating F5 tornado in Moore, Oklahoma, followed by the largest tornado in world history, 2.6 miles wide, in nearby El Reno a few days later. These tornadoes killed kids at an elementary school and 3 storm chasers, among many others. No discrimination. Each one of these events seriously broke my heart. And as I say, I was sick of it. It hurt to watch, and I decided I was watching no more." He then goes on to say, "Unfortunately, it is likely to get worse, a lot worse. I honestly believe I would have seen a dirty bomb go off in a big city, or a virus sweep the world, or a nuke in the hands of terrorists. I honestly believe I might have seen a tsunami wipe out an American coast, or a volcano destroy half of Mexico City or Seattle. These things are going to happen someday. But even if they didn't happen in my lifetime, had I tried to live as long as I was able, one thing absolutely positively would happen, and there is nothing on this earth that can stop it." Now, I am not a mental health professional by any stretch of the imagination, so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. And in a way, I do understand where he's coming from. The world does seem this bleak sometimes. And most of us have probably had thoughts like this, like, is the world so doomed that there's any point anymore? However, as far as I understand, most people, even though they have those thoughts, it doesn't consume them. Rather, I should say, if you're not depressed or don't have serious mental health issues, it shouldn't consume you. But I just have to say, for a guy like Martin who swears up and down that he is not depressed and anyone who says otherwise is ignorant or a liar, he sure does seem to have a hyper focus, at least based on his blog posts, of the concept that we're all doomed and there's no point. Have you ever listened to the podcast miniseries S-Town? If you haven't listened to it, highly recommend. Again, if you're in a good state of mind, it is sad. No spoilers, but the main focus of that podcast is a man from a small town who does clearly have major depression issues. And it's just interesting because in the podcast, in his interviews, he would talk all the time about how doomed the world is and how people are just so inherently evil and how many terrible things happen to good people. He would talk about this stuff in that podcast several times and seemed to be hyper focused on it, and it seemed to be a huge part of his depression. Again, I am not a mental health expert and do not claim to be, but I just have a hard time believing that Martin had absolutely no mental health issues like he claims when he seems so focused on how the world is hopeless. I just think, as somebody who I'm very, very fortunate to not suffer with depression. And yes, I do have those thoughts, but it does not consume me. I also do see hope, and I see joy, and I see the good people in the world, and I am able to come back to the reality that it's not hopeless. Anyway, S-word is very stigmatized. I just proved it in this video by having to either censor the word or say things like S-word instead of the actual word, because you can't even say the word too much on YouTube without them flagging your video, putting a bunch of warnings on it, sometimes emailing you to ask if you're okay. And to me, I just think that's ridiculous. I think we should be talking about it more. I don't think we should be afraid of the word. I think that stigmatizes it more and it makes people who are suffering scared to talk about it. But I do have to say, for Martin's case, reading a large chunk of his blogs, it's a very extensive website, I do honestly believe that this is really what he wanted. Maybe he was the exception to the general rule. Maybe this really was a good thing for him. It's hard to call it a bad thing for him in particular when throughout his entire blog, he really does seem set in his ways and has sound mind that for him personally, this is what he wanted. However, I think it's important to discuss that even if this was the maybe right path for him, that does not mean that it is a good thing in general. I think Martin would agree with me on that it's not like he wants young people to die this way or even old people to die this way necessarily. It's just that this is what he wanted to do and he wanted control over his life. I do hope that nobody who's currently having S-word ideation or issues is even watching this part of my video, because I hope that you skipped out before this section as I warned you to do. But if you did and you're watching, I am putting resources below. And I just want to say that in spite of the fact that Martin's story is definitely an anomaly, I am glad that you're still with us, and I am glad that you're still here. All right, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Please like the video just to help the channel out, and I will see you all in the next one. Big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters on the screen right now, with our top tiers being Colin Holmes, The Deck of Cards, Michelle Valavinos, Tom L, Little Kittle Cat, Mitchell Schaefer-Meyer, Mike, Alice Paul, Brittany Phillips, Momo Neon, Marita 144, Sage K, Elderly Hipster, The Puppy Hag, Rebecca Jackson, Toby, Carter, Kawakan Anime and Gaming Convention, Sarah the Crazy Fish Lady, Maxie, Ellison Luna, Tiny Mighty Bookworm, A Bunny apparently, Leon Vanek, Elliot Fink, I Am In Your Walls, Habomania, Cyberdog Investigations LLC, Vicky Cat, Amy B, Tick Urch, Dead Without the E, Ball, Olivezilla, Chara, MH Dave, Ami, Lindsay R, Miss T, Lou Raccoon, Shayna R, El Magnificoco, Victor Schmiel, Laura Winter, Lilith, Dana, Ashes, Arctic Ghost, Goshzilla, Gabriella L, Aria Anomaly, Ghosty Girl, Mel Miller, and our newest, Jessica Cook.